Here.
Mr. Warren.
Here. Okay, at this time, thank you for everyone for being here. It's public recognition time, so bear with me as I read through some procedural pieces so we're all on the same page. On our agenda, it states as follows: any person may raise a question to the school board. The board will not act on any item presented to them that is not on the agenda. Every attempt should be made by individuals to remedy a complaint or issue a concern with the staff involved, the building level principal, and or the superintendent before addressing the Board of Education. Also, the board would like persons to limit themselves to 5 minutes. We'll address that in a moment because we know how many people would like to speak, with a maximum of 15 minutes per topic, which we will adhere to. These limitations are needed for us to run a timely and orderly board meeting. Persons are requested to identify themselves before speaking. All right, so on that note, before I go into any other details, we have 6 people that would like to speak tonight. So with the process we've just stated, we'll go about 3 minutes each. So if we could adhere to that to allow everybody a chance to speak. So with that said, then our procedures for open meeting, I want to make sure again we're on the same pages. And this is in our policy 206. These are the following procedures for agenda items. Citizens who wish to have a subject discussed at a public school board meeting are encouraged to notify the superintendent's office in advance of the school board meeting. The citizen should provide his or her name, address, the name of the group represented, if any, and the subject to be covered or the issue to be addressed. Number 2, citizens who wish to address the school board on a particular subject should identify the subjects and identify the agenda item or items in which their comments pertain. Number 3, the school board chair will recognize one speaker at a time and will rule out of order other speakers who are not recognized. Only those speakers recognized by the chair, which is myself, will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. Individuals who interfere with or interrupt speakers, the school board, or the proceedings may be directed to leave. The school board retains the discretion to limit discussion of any agenda item to a reasonable period of time, as determined by the school board, which we've now allotted to be about 18 minutes. If a group or organization wishes to address the school board on a topic, the school board reserves the right to require designation of one or more representatives or spokespersons to speak on behalf of the groups or organization. And it sounds like we have 6, so it sounds good. Number 5, matters proposed for placement on the agenda, which may involve data privacy concerns, which may involve preliminary allegations, or which may be potentially libelous or slanderous in nature, shall not be considered in public, but shall be processed as determined by the school board in accordance with governing law. Number 6, the school board chair shall promptly rule out of order any discussion by any person, including school board members, that would violate the provisions of state or federal law. This policy or the statute rights of privacy of an individual. Number 7, personal attacks by anyone addressing the school board are unacceptable. Persistence in such remarks by an individual shall terminate that person's privilege to address the school board. Depending upon the number of persons in attendance seeking to be heard, the school board reserves the right to impose such other limitations and restrictions as necessary in order to provide an orderly, efficient, and fair opportunity for those present to be heard. Okay, so that's just our policy. We want to make sure we're all understanding where we're coming from and trying to adhere to. And as always, we welcome your comments. Thank you for your interest and concerns, and also through the emails and all other venues that have been followed to share your concerns and thoughts. All right, so with that said, we will begin our public recognition time. I have a list of people, and again, this is just as they were given to me. So forgive me if I say the name wrong, but when I say your name, please stand up.
And Mr. Westphal has a microphone that he'll bring to you.
Thank you. Sarah Berartinger? Thank you. Just as a reminder, 3 minutes, and we'll be timing just to keep pace. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Sarah Berartinger. My husband and I live right outside of town. He actually went to school here and graduated here, and when we had children, we were hoping to send our children here too, but there are a number of just kind of concerning things and trends that are going statewide, and I really hope Pine Island stays out of it. One of them is a trend to usurp parental rights. Parents know their children and their home situation best. They have the right to choose whether or not to send their children to school with or without a mask, or vaccinated or unvaccinated. It is their right to choose. Parental choice is key. Another thing I see is hindering health freedoms and privacy. HIPAA is still a big thing. We deserve the freedom to make our own health choices and privacy to health information. There is risk in anything we do. The virus is a risk, but so is taking the vaccine, and so is wearing the mask. Students, parents, and staff deserve the freedom to do what is best for their health situation. Parents have the right to be informed regarding their kids' health. Masks. So in talking about masks, I'm saying these things just to present that there are two sides of every story. There's a risk to anything and everything we do, and there is a rational, reasonable, and scientific reason for not wearing masks. One of them is that from a study done in Germany, over 25,000 children were studied, and they found that children wearing masks were found to have 60% increase in irritability, 53% regular headaches, 50% struggling to concentrate, which makes school hard. They're less happy, they're hearing impaired, they're deregulated at school, drowsiness, fatigue, there's all sorts of things. Also, the CDC has said that since masks were implemented, an increase of 51% of suicide teen rate has increased by 51%, which is huge. Also, since masks were implemented nationwide, there's a 600% increase in miscarriages. And that's huge for people trying to start a family. There are risks, serious risks to wearing things. So people need the choice to be able to decide what's good for them. Also, vaccines. The viral infection rate among children is below 100%. The adverse effects of vaccine can cause serious lifelong and even deadly problems. If you look on the VERSA database, that can prove it. There's more to it, but I have some information if people want it. I can give it to you afterwards, or you can sign up and I can give you more. Basically, coming down to it is, why are we teaching kids to live in fear? They need the right to be able to go to school and to get a good education, and parents have the right to be able to have a say in that. So often I see people also being shamed for not wearing a mask. Why? We don't need to know their personal health situation. That is their choice. If the school is concerned about being sued for someone dying of COVID, what about the liability for someone dying from the vaccine? Over 11,000 deaths have already been contributed to the vaccine this year. And so I have some other things I can give you guys a copy of this, but thank you for your time. And basically I just urge for parental rights and health freedoms. So thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Jerry Olson.
Hi, I'm Jerry Olson. I've got two kids in the school system here. And thanks if I should need that, I don't know. And I too, I want to speak on the subject of masking, and as you might guess, though, that I'm wearing a mask, is that I'm going to come down on the side with a preponderance of expert opinion. There are varying opinions, I get that, but the vast majority of all expert opinion is on the side of being very careful with this. Now, as far as impinging on people's rights go, I look at it kind of like a speed limit too. You can say I should have the right to drive any speed I want on the highway, but what does that do? It endangers you, and I don't think you care for that. And I think the same thing for now can apply to masking. Neither one of my kids want to wear masks in school, but both of them realize that we've got safety concerns for them, definitely for their family, and for everyone in the school system. We have to keep it safe. We don't really have an alternative here. Right now, the rage of the Delta variant and the breakthrough cases of people who, like myself and my family, have been vaccinated have good reason to believe from the head of emergency medicine in Hennepin County that it may be a good bit larger than we realized. So I'm kind of suggesting that it might be best to mandate the masking when we have to and keep the school open. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Carissa Shumacher?
I too am speaking on masks. When we bought our house, we were specifically looking for a home in Pine Island because of the school district. And it took a lot of looking, and now it's even harder to come by to find. And we've had so many people that have open enrolled their kids into Pine Island because it's a great school, and I feel like we should keep it that way. I just wanted to share a little bit of science. 4.2 million kids have tested positive for COVID. 0.008 have died. Now, if we follow the science, why are we wearing masks? My child is starting school, the first year ever. This should be an exciting time in our life, but instead we're worrying about these kind of things, that we don't have a right to make a decision for him, that someone else is going to make that and is going to force him to live in fear just because he wants to go to school. We've thought about homeschooling because we don't really care for masks, but with a 5-year-old little boy where all his friends go to school, that's all he wants. I'm super nervous, so. Do you know what it's called when you force a child to wear a mask for a virus that poses no threat to them? It's child abuse. If you think I'm over-exaggerating, look up Munchausen proxy. What would you say to a parent that was forcing their kid to wear a football helmet because they didn't want their kid to die of coconuts falling from the sky or meteors? Your child has just as much of a chance to die from COVID as it does coconuts and meteors falling from the sky. We're teaching our children that air is toxic. Everyone's sick. My little boy is so excited to meet friends. How is he going to meet friends when everyone's wearing a mask? We're told to stay away from each other. That's like my childhood when I grew up. Have you ever wondered the health effects of forcing someone to breathe out of a sweat, spit, and dirt-soaked rag every single day? He's going to be learning to read this year. How is he going to learn to read when he can't see his teacher enunciate words? And his teacher can't correct him on how to enunciate words? Have we ever thought about what happens to their immune system after wearing a mask all day? All that they're breathing in? I wouldn't be satisfied sending him with that burden to wear a mask all day. It's not to keep him safe, because if we look at the science, he is safe. It's not to keep teachers or anyone else safe, because they're old enough to get vaccinated if that's what they please. But in my opinion, it's to protect ourselves politically, and we should probably keep that out of it.
Thank you, Carissa. Robin Schmull?
I'm Robin Schmull, lived in the Pine Island community for many, many, many years. Have 2 children in the Pine Island School District right now. And I graduated a senior when this all started back in 2020. And I first want to commend the board for making some great decisions, even though they were tough decisions. I feel like you did a great job of, and our administration and school, of keeping our kids safe and trying to balance that with a great education and as good of experience as we could have. Looking forward, I obviously am here to just discuss a little bit about the value of masking. I'm also a nurse, and so I see this from a medical perspective. So people are saying the likelihood of kids dying from COVID is small, and yes, it is. But the likelihood of closing our schools due to quarantines and teacher absences is a very real possibility if we start to get COVID in our buildings. I think we can all agree that distance learning wasn't our very favorite, and we would much prefer to have our kids in the building learning with their teachers. If putting a mask on will allow my kids, my daughter, who's a senior this year, to have mostly a normal experience, I would much prefer to put the mask on and go through our days as regular as possible. The other piece of it is science has come down very firmly on the side of masking will help prevent COVID. It's not going to save things. It's not going to prevent us from spreading, but will reduce. We have followed CDC, Mayo Clinic, Department of Health, Department of Education. I could list a lot of other agencies that very clearly say masking is a really good idea right now. And I would just urge our school board to listen to those experts. We follow them in all other areas of health. Let's follow them now.
Thank you, Robin. Bruce McNamara?
Yes, well, first of all, masks don't do anything. The micron size, the most masks is like 40 to 80 microns, something like that. Micron size is like 1 micron. It's like trying to stop a mosquito from going through a chain link fence. It doesn't do anything. You can wear 4 or 5 of them, it still doesn't do anything. So that was all made up. We never saw that on any of the other, excuse me, any of the other flu things that have gone through the years. Why did they ever bring this mask thing up then? You know, whether it was the other SARS, all those other things, which were actually much more deadly than this was, the subject was never brought up. Okay, these guys pretty covered the mask, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the vaccine and the importance of knowing the risks that you're taking, especially for children, of taking the vaccine, this is the most unproven vaccine ever. As you may know, most vaccines take 5 to 10 years to get through all the testing. They're very careful. Most of the time, if in the course of this, when you hit about 25 deaths from vaccines, it's pulled off the market, just like that. Well, if you're watching the VAERS reports, in the United States now we have upwards of 12,000 deaths. Those are deaths in the first month of a vaccine. 6 weeks? 6 months? Well, anyway, still not pulled off the market. It still hasn't received FDA approval. It's still in the emergency mode, and that's the only way they could get it started in the first place. But why are they pushing this steadily now on the children? They start out with adults, the most prone and all that, and now they're just pushing it right down, and I think they're just going to push it right down to the first week of age. That'll come next. And why? Kids have virtually no chance of getting it, but yet they want to put this in their arm that is unproven. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. So whatever the real reason is, I guess we don't totally know yet. I think we will know in the future. But I don't know, it's nonsense to say that this is what the kids should have. So adults, yeah, you can make your own choices. But when they start pushing this and requiring it, now they're requiring it in businesses, colleges, you know, that's their method. They say you don't have to get it, but if you want to work here, if you want to live here, if you want to do all these things, oh, you got to be vaccinated. They're not coming to our houses yet, but I wouldn't put it past them. But anyway, that's about all I got. So.
Thank you, Bruce. I also want to remind everyone that vaccinations are not on our agenda. Just keep it focused on masking. So thank you, Bruce. Erin Young? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erin Young, and my husband and I have 2 children who we've enrolled in Pine Island. This is our 2nd time enrolling them. Last year we had them enrolled. My oldest is going to be in 1st grade, and my son will be in preschool. We pulled them out of Pine Island last year because we didn't think that putting a mask on our children was a good thing, and I homeschooled them. We feel that putting a mask on our kids hinders their ability to learn how to read, how to speak, and how to socially be with others. We put our kids into the summer Panther Pals program this year, and it's been really wonderful. My oldest had to wear a mask for the first month until July 1st, that magical date when it was okay to take it off. And she would come home and I would ask her how her day was and if she wore her mask, and she said, "No, Mom, I could take it off, it didn't matter." And I knew she was lying because I knew she was wearing it. But it was sad for me that she wanted to be strong and kind of lie about it. But she didn't want to disappoint the school. Or, she shouldn't have to go through that. My kids are my kids. They are not yours to decide what to do with. They are Americans with rights too. They are my responsibility and my most treasured possession. They are not yours or anyone else's. I don't want to get so emotional, but I'm just asking you to please stand for our parental rights so that we can do what's best for them. And I understand that people on the other side feel the same way. And that's why it would be great if it was just optional. If a mask works and your kid can wear it, great. I was taking a look at the Minnesota School Board Association, and one of the standards on there is standard number 5. And it says, this is a quote from the website, "Focus on community-wide concerns and values that best support equity and student achievement rather than being influenced by special interests." So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that you would uphold your standards as a school board, and I thank you for your time.
Erin. Okay, that ends our public recognition time period, and we go to comments from the chairperson. And I want to say thank you, and again, the residents of Pine Island have risen to the occasion and responded with respect. You've listened, and that's number one. When we start to escalate to be heard louder over someone else, nothing is accomplished. So I really, and you guys can add to this if you like, but appreciate listening, because that's what we're here for. It's our job to listen. This is not a debate or a discussion. We're just here to listen. That's why we haven't responded to anything. So we want to make sure that you know that. Our part in this role is to listen. So thank you for your respect. And with that, you do know that the masking agenda item is almost last. That's on purpose because we want to process what we didn't know what we would hear during this 15 minutes. So we can get our school business done, and then we'll address that at the end of our last agenda item. Okay, so again, thank you for your respect for one another in that moment. Okay, with that, we move to points of Panther Pride.
And I know we're working on trying to get it displayed. It should be displayed for you to see at the same time. Just a couple of notes of points of Panther Pride. We want to congratulate Matt Northrup. He's the 2021 State Class A Boys Track and Field Coach of the Year. So we're very proud of Matt Northrup. Also, we had 23 teams play in this year's Panther Open Golf benefit that goes towards Panther athletics. And our Panther Scholar Academy had many interesting and fun experiences this summer. And I just want to add to that with special thanks to the public library. Heidi and Rachel were just outstanding and working with the school district. Lisa Myron-Shetty, who's here tonight, was our go-to person for that, so thank you for that. Jenny Barker, who's also here, thank you for all your extra work. Our principals, and then of course none of it would have been possible without the staff committed to doing that. And on the heels of a challenging year, just filled with gratitude for all of the work that went into that, so thank you.
Okay. All right, when we look at the agenda that's been presented, there's one change we want to make. If you go down to processes to, I believe now are lettered R and S, the Peace Lab and
Pace.
back to school. What?
Pace.
Oh, I said it wrong.
Sorry.
I had it written down. All right, we have, it's originally stated as Pays Lab first, then back to school masking we're gonna leave and do a tour of that. So for efficiency purposes, we're going to ask you to swap that. So we will do the back-to-school mask requirements discussion, and then once we finish with that, we'll leave to do our Hayes Lab tour, and then we'll come back after the superintendent gives her comments. So that's the only change I have, right? Okay, so Christie's motion to approve the consent agenda.
The agenda.
Sorry, the approval of the agenda.
Second.
All right, Ted is the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, agenda is approved. Now I move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Do you want to speak to any of that?
I don't think so. I just point out that we have our non-certified resignations and hirings as part of the consent, so if anyone has a request to move that out of the consent agenda or one of them, this would be the time to do so. Yay.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Emily moves to approve the consent agenda.
I can
That's a motion, yeah. Seconded by Christie. Any further discussion? With none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, approval of the consent agenda has passed. Thank you. We'll move to our donations. This is a roll call, isn't it always? Yeah. We have donors. Choose for Mrs. Holcomb's class. Let's stay fit and keep moving. Any details of that?
I do not. Dr. Hanson, do you know how much that was for? Okay.
So is it just first off, like fit bands? Oh, okay.
So
I didn't
equipment
understand what
more
it
so.
was. Okay. So that I
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the donation.
Motion by Emily,
Second?
second by Molly. Any further discussion? Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Ms. Harney?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miller, yes. Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson-Recker?
Yes.
Mr. Mordecai?
Yes. Okay, move on to people, which includes 2 resignations, quite a few hires, and some FMLA staff.
So the first one we have is Elizabeth McCabe, 4th grade. She'll be leaving us for relocating. So thanking Elizabeth for her service. And do you want to do them together?
Yeah, if it's okay by the board, we'll do them all at once, if we're okay with that.
And Dave Burnett, leaving special ed for a classroom position in Rochester.
Okay, so each A, B, and C are all separate actions.
I would-
Okay.
Motion to approve the resignation.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Ron. Any further discussion? Having none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, resignations are accepted. Thank you for your time in the district. We move on to hiring.
I'll just do a run through. We have all the hiring summaries attached as well. We have Yuki Kendall, who will be joining our elementary school with Spanish, and so she'll be providing that for all our students, whether they're in the Spanish immersion program or not. Kate Earl as a district-wide social worker, and we're adding that as for mental health. Morgan Anderson, long-term sub in high school English. Megan Manning, elementary special ed. Morgan Hogg, kindergarten. And Krista Affelt, elementary special ed. And again, all those hiring summaries are attached.
Motion to approve the hiring.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Molly. Any further discussion?
How long is that long-term sub?
That is for 1 year.
1 year?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just comment, the social worker who came out of the wellness meetings. that we're
Mental health,
having.
yep.
So it's kind of exciting.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Any further discussion? Thank you for keeping me on track. All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, hires are accepted. Thank you. Welcome to the district. KC brings us to FMLA.
So we have 2 FMLA requests. Both of these fit the parameters of FMLA. The first one, Miller, is a request for 10 days, and Nordrum is the first semester.
Move to approve the FMLA.
Motion by Ted,
Second.
second by Ron. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, FMLA accepted, passed. Thank you. Okay, move on to performance. Again, we are requested for efficiency to look at these reports prior to this, with the idea that if you have anything you'd like to have clarified or bring to our attention, you're welcome to do so at any time. First report is from Dr. Hanson at the elementary.
Good. See a lot of compliments for our custodial staff and all of these really, just getting the school back to ready from migrating from one to the other, so really appreciate those guys.
Correct. And this summer has been busier than normal, even without that. We had ESY on site, that's not typical. Everybody's at school takes a turn, then it's our turn. And then the summer, Stellar Academy. So on top of all the ones we were doing extra cleaning, and they're just outstanding job. So agree, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, move on to Mr. Westfall's 5-8 report. Any comments on that? Big week coming up?
Big week.
Yes. Understatement of the world, right?
It's hard to believe already.
Yes. Okay, I know Mr. Schultz is not here with us tonight, but I'm sure we can bring anything up if we'd like.
Right.
For the high school report. I have been getting questions about the high schools, their schedules. So it's out on Skyward. What is the best process to bring any questions to guidance? Is it the night of our meeting and getting our computers? Is
Or
it-
the office staff is back, so they
Okay.
could call and set something up,
Yep.
and our counselors come in
Okay.
earlier too.
So just address the office.
Yes.
Okay. I got one more. One more.
Let's hope I know
I
the
should know the
answer.
system by now, don't I? Shouldn't I? I should know it by now, but I always have to ask it.
We're gonna have our, not to step on Mike here, but we're gonna have our student rep back next month then, she'll be ready. and
Usually
started.
there's September is when they start, yes. I know, the favorite part of the board meetings.
Yeah, she doesn't have much.
Okay, great. All right, we go to Officer Erdman. Do you have any questions for his report for July and August? Thank you for being here tonight, by the way. Appreciate it.
If I can just interject that I had a conversation with Officer Erdman earlier today, and he's anxious to be back and off of patrol, so we're happy to welcome him back.
All right. Well, good. Well, thank you again for your time in the district. All right, move to E, cadence of accountability.
Yeah, so cadence of accountability in September is when we start looking at what all of our cabinet member goals are and then aligning those so that you can collectively see the progress of the cabinet throughout the course of the year. And we'll be doing that again, however, it'll look a little bit different based on how you finalize our strategic plan, which is also on the board agenda tonight. So you'll see that alignment as soon as we have that finalized. And then the graph will be back starting in September with our kind of baseline numbers. Any
Wonderful.
questions?
All right. So we move on to 7, processes. And we start with our back-to-school brochure.
So if you've had an opportunity, this is our staff back-to-school brochure. So starting tomorrow, things kick off. We welcome our new staff tomorrow, and that list just has grown and grown. And Jeannie, what's our number right now? Do you have that? Well, welcome to new staff. Used to occur in the boardroom with about 10 chairs, and now it's in here. So we will have about 25, 30 new staff members that we're welcoming to the district. So we're excited for that. It's a big day. Our principals cook for them. So we're excited for that, and a huge thank you for that too.
What's on the menu? Is it on here?
Nope, but Mr. Westfall is, that's,
I would love to see that.
What's that?
I'd love to see that.
We'll take pictures and send it to you.
and the menu is usually pretty elegant. What is it tomorrow?
Oh, elegant.
Well,
Beef rib and risotto.
not your typical sloppy joes. On the 18th, we have Kickstart, and so that is an option for all of our staff, and they have a lot of fun and learning activities included into that. And Mr. Smith, a shout out to him, he organizes that, so we're thankful for that. And then on the 23rd, we have a work day, and that looks a little bit different for our licensed and non-licensed staff. And on the 24th, it's a principal-led day in each of the respective buildings. That evening, we will have middle school and high school orientations. And then on the 25th is the Super Bowl of back to school, and that's when we welcome all of our staff back. This year, we are mixing that up a little bit, and we will be going out to Pond View Farms in the afternoon for a picnic event and a number of activities out there, so we're excited to do that. Of course, embedded in all of this, we have a lot of district updates, training, mandatory training, and a lot of the typical beginning of the year things. And then on August 26th, we have Tech Academy, and that is optional for our licensed staff. And then we have our non-licensed staff with Strengths Finder with a local expert in the area, Bethany. So we're excited about all of that. And I'm also looking for a board member who'd like to participate in the welcome, if anyone is available. That'll start with breakfast on the 25th at 8, and the welcome back at 8:30.
And you would like the board member to speak at 8:30?
Yes,
Welcome back.
yeah. Usually it's a little after that, by the time we corral everyone after breakfast.
I'm sure they're tired of my long speeches, so whoever wants to.
That's not true.
I did it 2 years ago.
8:30, is that?
Mm-hmm.
I can do that.
Molly?
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be in the auditorium.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions with our back to school?
Nice job.
Thank you.
Good luck to your start.
Oh, and our theme, I should just mention, is be the ripple effect for positive change. And so you have to have a theme.
Okay. All right, we move on to B, which is St. Paul's Lutheran Church contract.
So last year, when we were really looking to provide space so that we could provide as much space between our students as possible, we reached out to local churches and asked if they would be willing to partner with us. And St. Paul Lutheran, actually a number of them said absolutely, whatever you need. And what worked best for our needs was St. Paul Lutheran Church. And we worked a lease agreement out. Because of our enrollment in space, we have asked to stay there. We are building a building across the street, which obviously isn't there yet, to take on our early childhood programs. And so we'd like to stay in that building, so we have a new lease agreement. One thing that we are changing, though, is that last year we paid all of the utilities by the space that we were using, so we had a square footage formula. This year, we'd like to include that into a monthly fee so that we have a stable number that we're doing. And we are looking at It works out to be 27 to 56 cents per square foot, and the square footage that's used on a regular basis is about 3,500. What we have available to us is 7,000, and so we are recommending $1,900 per month as our lease rental agreement for the school year.
School year ending,
June 3rd, 2022.
So we're not thinking through the summer.
Well,
So that's
perhaps, but this contract would just be until June 3rd.
how does that compare to what we actually paid last year?
It's very close. Some months a little higher and other months less.
So average out about the same.
Correct.
I'd move to approve the lease contract at the Lutheran Church.
Okay, motion by Ted,
Second.
second by Adam. Thank you. Any further discussion?
What's our number, right? Do you know off the top of your head what our number is right now?
Number for enrollment.
Yeah.
I just looked at it last week. We were up. Jeannie, do you have that number?
Of the total enrollment?
Yeah.
The total enrollment is about 1,500.
Yeah, but of new students for this year.
New students, I think I'm up to like 85.
Alright, I was just curious.
In this building.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's here.
Just like Panther Clubs.
In this building, we're over 400 in the high school,
No,
which is.
in this building.
Oh, that building.
Yeah.
Jenny?
What was the question?
How many
The number of students in St. Paul Lutheran.
For the upcoming school year, I would say on an average day will probably be
At your busiest point.
80 to 100 between my program and Kelly's preschool classes.
And that's what they were asking. It's great to have everyone here. I can just look at my phone instead of calculate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, this is roll call.
Ms. Barney?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miller, yes. Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson, record?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes. Thank you, St. Paul.
Yes, a huge thank you for working with them in their partnership.
Okay, review and comment.
This is just an FYI for board members. This is the response to the review and comment, which is a rather large document that is written as for approval for the project that we're looking at. So this is for the Early Childhood Learning Center, which will go across the street. And this is a favorable response from the Commissioner of Education. And so oftentimes this will come back asking for more details, more information. So we're excited to have a favorable response, and it just allows things to move forward in a very efficient manner. So any questions on that?
That's good news.
Thanks.
Okay, let me move on to school home construction update.
Yeah, just an update on this. So our closing of the schoolhouse that was built in the 2020-21 school year was delayed just because product availability, some of that with the countertops, and then the buyer and selling their own land, but we are finalizing all of that this week. However, we'll do a transaction for that to show up in our last fiscal year because it was approved, the sale was approved in May. And then also moving forward with this year's school home, which is the 21-22, which is about a 3,400 square foot home. And that construction will be beginning, and after this, we move right into approving the bids for materials for that house. Any question on either of the homes?
Okay, so it takes us to the house bid for this.
Yeah, so these are
new-
the bids for this school year's home. Oops. So I'll just walk through the recommended contract awards. So we had this on an open bid in the news record, and the bids that Ben Bauer and Kevin Nelson would like to move forward with, which are the low bids in this case, are a lumber bid from Pine Island Lumber, electric from Luoma, HVAC by Action, plumbing also by Action, and then excavation by Crescent Builders. And this total project for this school year included any taxes, and we are required to pay taxes if we are selling that again. So typically, we're not as a school district, but because we sell, we are. So we are looking at a total project cost of $262,425.77. And you have the numbers by each of those.
We're still going to follow a similar timeline to completion?
We are. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming Ben will tweak it a little bit so he's not there in June frantically doing all of the finishing work.
Correct, that would be helpful.
Ideal.
Have they started any of the excavation work?
They were doing some prep, but I'm not sure if that meant moving dirt or, Ted, have you?
Ted, you're up there.
I haven't gone up to the corner yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
They're confident on the timelines on it. We did purchase additional scaffolding because it is a walkout basement, which will require greater elevation for roofing.
The basement isn't finished, right?
It is.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
So the last time we talked about this, was we were worrying about the fluctuation in the market, so it's good to have some final numbers here to move forward with.
Right, and I think we also have an expert in that area as well, talking about what materials are doing, that type of thing, because I had a concern with the building across the street as to what happens if materials decrease. And so we had talked a lot about doing material on an ongoing basis, but right now the recommendation is that we would lock these prices in, and our lumber has also stated that if there's a decrease, they would share that as well.
Great. That's fantastic. I would move to approve the house bids.
Motion by Ted,
Second.
second by Ron. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, this is also a roll call.
Ms. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miller? Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson-Marker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Exciting.
Looking forward to seeing it.
Can't wait for the tour again.
March.
That's great, that's always fun, isn't it? Okay, on to the Early Childhood Learning Center bids.
All right, and we have this as an attached document, I believe, maybe not?
No.
Nope, not, I'm sorry. So I have Dustin Kempf is here tonight, so he's going to walk through. I will just say the number of times that we've had a bid opening, I've never seen participation like this. Knowing that the materials are high, that type of thing, there's certainly a lot of competition in the various trades. So Dustin, do you want to speak to all of the bids?
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to go through each bidding category, but just looking at it from a high level. So going into this bid for the early childhood facility, we had a target budget number of $5,031,729. Overall, we had about 20 different bidding categories, so different scopes of work. And overall, we got about 114 bids in, and that's about 5.5 to 6 bids overall per category, which is fantastic. When the bids came in, right now we just got through vetting out the numbers, and right now we're sitting at a total of $4,969,628. And we had one in particular work scope that wasn't bid, or we didn't get the coverage at all. So that was about $60,000 after working with Scott Shumacher with Shumacher Excavating. And right now, that would put us at a total of $5,028,628 within our construction budget. So just to break that down, that puts us $3,101 under budget, or within 0.06%, which is, I'm happy with that.
During a volatile market.
And if anyone participated in the bid opening, we were about $500,000 over in the first 3 scopes of the bid. So to see the final get manageable it's a stressful process, let me just say that. It's very stressful. Yes, it moves fast, it moves really fast.
Sorry, I missed it.
Any other comments, Dustin?
No, from Carl Anderson's perspective, based on the budget numbers and the coverage that we got, we recommend proceeding with the contractors that we sent you in a list. I don't know if you want me to go through them all.
I think we'll just run through them all, but I would just add to that, that this Wednesday night, we will have a facility meeting. And so the facility committee will also look at possible value engineering on a couple of the scopes, which would take that dollar amount down again. But we would approve all of this here, and then those would be change orders if we want to do any of the value engineering, if you do. So yeah, Dustin, I think just walk through. I know that you talk really fast, so each of those, and then we can have a motion.
Yeah, so concrete masonry work scope, we have Eber Construction as our parent low bidder for $457,700. For our structural precast, we have Wells Concrete, which is at $971,434. Combined structural steel, so supply and install, we have Breezy Ironworks for $218,730. For our rough carpentry package, we have Tecton Construction for $114,900. For our architectural millwork, we have TMI Systems Corporation for $100,109. For our roofing, metal panel, and skylight system, we have Flynn Midwest for $379,064. Our sealants package, we have Carissa Shumacher with $18,675. Doors, frames, and hardware, material supply only, we have Twin City Hardware for $96,650. Our glass and glazing, we have Hench's Glass. They were low with $238,864. For our drywall, we had Custom Drywall for $299,895. For tile, we had Tim's Construction Group for $56,082. Our ceiling and acoustical treatment is Ceiling Pro with a low of $60,990. Flooring, which would be our resilient and carpeting, we had Acoustic Associates with our low bidder. We did have one of our bidders withdraw because they didn't have a certain category bid within our work scope. So Acoustic Associates became the new low with $137,296. Painting and wall covering was Midwest Decorators with a low bid of $38,300. Our elevator package was Otis Elevator, base bid $81,499. Our fire suppression, we had Zenzen with a low of $50,545. Our combined mechanical, we had Chapel Central at $1,060,000. Our electrical package, we had Ford Electric at $450,000. And our site clearing, earthwork, landscaping, and utilities, a low bidder was Shumacher Excavating at $138,895. And that brings us to our total of $4,969,628. But talking to Scott Shumacher, we're carrying a budgetary number of about $60,000 because he's able to work with local contractors to carry that asphalt and paving number. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of months of talking and then waiting and then talking again and waiting again, and finally nice to see it kind of come together. So I'm excited for the next I'm watching the waiting.
Waiting won't be true.
Okay, looking for a motion?
I'll move to approve the bid.
Okay, motion by Ted to approve the bids,
Second.
second by Ron. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, this is a roll call.
Ms. Harvey? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miller, yes. Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Wonderly?
Yes. All right.
Thank you. A couple of things that I'll just add to that are all of the exact work scopes and the contractors will be in the minutes. So if anyone was wanting to note who will be doing something, that'll all get posted. And then also just speaking to the timeline. So when we built the elementary school, the board passed that, and within days we had construction work, earthwork moving. That will not be the case in this project, really due to the availability of materials. So I believe precast right now is out till March. So as much as we want to move things quickly, it will be a little bit. So I just wanted to point that out.
And also thank you to the board that also through the facilities committee was an issue of trying to get it the action on the table and being dealt with and voted on so they could move on it. So thank you for your votes on that. All right, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Okay, we move on to our award gratification resolution.
All right, so you have in front of you the certification regarding our participation in selling the bonds for the project that we just talked about. So I don't know how you want to address that, but here are your signature pages and
This was attached
correct.
to our agenda. And this is a cost savings to the
Correct.
district.
And so these bonds were actually sold on Thursday morning, and we sold for a rate of 2.05% interest, which the market's been not quite as favorable as it was. However, it was still a good rate. We feel good about it, and the participation was good. Sometimes this time of the year, banks don't necessarily, it's just not a season for them to participate, as it was described to me. So our financial advice is that this was very favorable for us.
And this saves us money on the life of the bond for the elementary building?
Nope, that's a
This is
different one.
Different.
This
Okay,
is
I thought
for
that was
the
earlier.
Early Learning Center.
Okay, good. All right, that's what I was, I knew we did that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, that is true.
All right, good clarification. All right, this is an action item, so is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve as stated by Adam,
Second.
second by Ted. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, this is a roll call.
Ms. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Miller, yes. Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson-Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Warnicki?
Yes. Okay, so is this something we
Thank
should
you.
do at the end of our meeting?
Yep, we'll just sign that at the end.
Okay.
Don't forget.
All right. All right, thank you. Moving on to Minnesota State High School League resolution.
So this is just to renew our membership.
Correct, this is the annual membership review. Lisa Myron-Shetty is here. Anything that you would like to point out, Lisa?
Just that, you know, it's a relatively new board. There's a video that goes along with this that I hope that you all watched. Just in the value of education-based athletics, I think is a really key thing in the youth athletics becoming a $1 billion industry, and our goal to build character and be competitive, and which, you know, by having a coach who is the coach of the year in the state of Minnesota, really just shines what our goals are, and that being part of the Minnesota State High School League really is a benefit, even if we don't always agree with some of their decisions.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, I would agree. Matt is a great example of what they try to get all coaches to be like in terms of trying to promote individual growth and achievement. So we're very lucky to have him. So again, congratulations to his award.
And the board, everyone has that video. It's attached to the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this is an action item to accept the State High School League request for fees, right, to be a participant.
To participate in the Minnesota State High School League.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Ron,
Second.
second by Christie. Any further discussion? I do believe you mentioned that the cost went down from last year, but still.
It did. They have adjusted, but it's still more than it had been, and so they're still working through their COVID response.
Financial health, right? Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to approval of the fall coaches list.
And with that on the screen, would you like to walk through that?
Sure, so the first one supervisors of all the activities that we're offering on the side. The middle school principal and high school principal and myself all tried to brainstorm in things that we're missing or not missing, things we have filled or not filled. And so if we have it filled, it's on there. And so we'll be contacting some staff as they come back to fill that. And then if you the bottom tab, you'll notice it has fall, winter, and spring. We have the full fall. Fall coaches, one of the issues that has come to light is that we will be needing to hire another football junior high coach because we have 52 kids out in junior high for football. So as those things go on and numbers are solidified, those things will just naturally happen. We also have included in the winter and the spring coaches that are known, and that just goes to the varsity and varsity level. We didn't continue on. That will be when we get closer to those seasons. But we try to do it all encompassing so that it just gets done.
I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't hear what you said about the junior high football. What was the-
Junior high football is at 52 members as of today. There's always late signups, which then means that we need one more coach. Currently we have 3, we'll need one more. So, good problems.
That's good. A reminder, I believe, that this is just a motion to accept fall coaches list.
Correct.
Move to approve the coach list.
Okay, motion by Ted, fall coaches, thank you.
Second?
Second by Molly, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. All right, motion passes. Thank you. And good luck this fall. Is there a moved on the official?
I believe so. Yes. Mhm.
Moving on to provisional online school application.
So this one is an action item, but there's no ability to provide asynchronous and synchronous instruction this year. So if we had a student who needed to quarantine or something, we don't have that ability. However, recently, the state of Minnesota has allowed for a provisional online school application. So that would be if we had an emergency, if we did close a building, if we closed the district, if we had an entire class, we could move to an online setting. So I have done that application, and I'm looking for you to approve that.
So this is an application for us to provide our own online
In emergency
in
cases.
an emergency case, so somewhat like what we migrated to in.
Correct, when we closed for the 2 weeks. Mhm.
No, after Thanksgiving, I think we had it in our plan to do it, but when COVID first hit, we had to instantly move to a new
model.
And
In the spring.
our model would be what it was before, and we'd follow the bell schedule. In middle school, high school, it'd be on the hour, every hour at the elementary, that type of thing.
But to clarify, this is for purely distance scenarios.
Correct. If a building moved to distance or the entire district
Or a classroom,
or classroom. Mhm.
Oh, you can do it at the classroom level
You could,
if they're all quarantined.
or grade.
right.
Okay.
But just for clarification, this is not about anything like last year where you had half in, half out,
No.
all being televised simultaneously. That's not what we're
Right,
talking about
right.
here. That is
So
not
talking
going to be.
like 7th grade, we have an outbreak, all of 7th grade needs to stay home, this is an emergency 2-week mandatory online.
Correct.
kind of thing?
Mhm.
So all students are going to receive the same
Instruction,
instruction in the same method at the same time.
Makes
all the time.
sense.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
and-
not partial.
Correct.
Not individual.
Right.
Or if
Not individual or
10, or
partial.
like a 10, group of 10 within
No.
7th grade could
Then
do
you're just
this.
sick with
Then
yours.
they're sick for 2 weeks and they have to make it up.
Right.
Or they're not sick, but they have to quarantine for 2
Right.
weeks. As an example. Okay.
And students in that situation would be considered like they have been on a trip and they're responsible for that makeup work.
Correct. We have a plan with that, but I don't want to confuse this,
This
so I
with that,
can
I wanna
address
make sure
that,
that's
yeah.
separate. Yep.
No, we're just trying to understand what this applies to.
Mhm.
So,
Just
well,
closure.
I'm trying to understand.
Got it.
so.
Emergency closure.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that'd be again probably our decision
Mhm.
as a board to do an emergency closure.
Right,
Yeah,
it
if
would
numbers
be.
get high enough, yeah. So moved to apply for this?
Once you apply.
Very fine, but, yeah, just your approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Christie to approve the provisional online school application, seconded by Emily. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, accepted. Thank you for your efforts on
Thank
that. Okay, on to play for fall.
All right, I know I have Kate Locke. There you are. I knew I saw you earlier. Kate just wanted to present to you the play that she'd like to recommend for this fall. And Kate, do you want to just give an overview of that?
Sure. The play I'm looking to do this fall is called She Kills Monsters. It's been around for about 15 years, and recently they updated it specifically for community audiences, and particularly high school students. It's a play that is set kind of between a fantasy world, the D&D, if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, the D&D realm, and then it's in a community, in a high school, in a comic book shop, and then the main character is home, and the main character has lost her sister and is experiencing and processing her grief through the D&D campaign that her sister wrote right before she died tragically in an accident. A couple of reasons to really like the play. One, I know we're here to talk about masks and COVID, and fingers crossed we don't have to deal with those situations, but it is something that would adapt well if we have to kind of think on our feet, which obviously we did last year. It's by an Asian American playwright, and we struggle to find voices in theater and in the arts that are representative of minority cultures, and I know obviously that's an initiative that the board and the district is looking at, so finding something that we could stage in a way that respected diversity in a district that doesn't always present with a lot of diversity was something that was very appealing to me. And as far as the acting is concerned and the skills that we're teaching students, there is a lot of kind of physicality, a lot of kind of stage fighting and some choreography that we haven't had an opportunity to do on stage yet, so it's a new opportunity for the students. The reason I talked to Dr. Camp about it, the reason I wanted to present to the board, is with any presentation to the community that potentially deals with more sensitive issues or topics that people have maybe different opinions about. I did want it to be known just up front in full disclosure that there are two lesbian characters presented in the play. I believe they're presented in a way that is appropriate for treatment in a high school setting, and would be in a way that I am proud to present to the community as a conversation about inclusion, and is reflective of the student value that we have here. So that being said, if there are any questions, I would certainly take questions or any concerns. I'm obviously willing to address those as well.
And that's why it's on here tonight, so that if there are questions, concerns, you can raise those, and Kate is here to answer that, or make a different choice. Right.
Is it a large cast?
So it's about 12 speaking parts, and then it's expandable for any number of people to be part of the play, to part of the ensemble.
When are you scheduled to perform?
So we haven't set a date yet. Lisa and I were just talking about it. It'll probably be that weekend of Veterans Day, the 11th, 12th, 13th, or the 12th, 13th, 14th of November.
Sounds like you've done your homework and you've prepped it and you sound excited. That's what's most important. Any comments from the board? Any questions?
I love seeing the community involvement with the plays, the people that show up.
I like the uniqueness of this one. It kind of speaks to the adolescent, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry, my son's a geek. And a few others in my house too. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun play.
Yeah, thank you for providing this opportunity for our students. It will be exciting to see the theater department grow with time too. So.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Thank you guys.
And thanks for being here.
Thank you for taking us through it. All right, wonderful. Good luck. All right, if there's no further questions about that, we'll move on to the approval of the handbooks for elementary, middle school, high school changes, the handbook for high school and activities.
All right, so we'll just walk through each of these individually. So we have the elementary one, and I just love how the principals have addressed any of their changes. So rather than you scrolling, and I'll let Dr. Hansen address the elementary one to start.
Yes, so typical changes in terms of names. We are changing our school times this year. We changed them last year because of COVID. We're changing them not quite back to what they were pre-COVID based on community feedback at both buildings. So those are updated. Based on where we were when I made these updates, that was when the masking requirement was removed. So I removed that from the handbook. The rotation of meals is different this year. Hopefully we'll be in the cafeteria. And then also change the language about lunch because it's free at breakfast and lunch. It's free for all students this year. I think that's it. Added Spanish as a specialist, change some access language. You'll probably access is there Title I of our buildings.
Thank you. Questions? Middle school.
All of mine, date changes, also had the updated staff list. Another thing that we added into middle school handbook was a link to the district calendar. We also have some language around any changes that have to do with lunch prices or anything like that from year to year that can be found on the food service website, and then a link to that also. And then, yeah, with the addition of any new staff, we put that into the district record.
Thank you. In the high school one, with the absence of Mr. Schultz, I can just walk through. So there's removing the limitations on being excused for graduation pictures, added language for honors pass, and he has all the page numbers noted here as well. And then would like to have a conversation about honor roll language, and then that being tied to our honor graduates. So currently, our honor graduates are 3.0 and higher. And so he is looking at starting a conversation of creating an honors and a high honors option. And that would be, the high honors might be 3.5 to a 3.75, 3.8 to a 4. So let me restate that because I didn't do a very good job of that. So looking at comparing to all other districts, a 3 as an honors grad is rather low. Most have that as a 3.5, and then a higher honors or high honors at a 3.75. And so wanting to have that conversation. Anything that would be changed would be grandfathered in so that students who are planning on that language would graduate under it. And then there's food service language updates. Again, it's been mentioned a couple of times. There's no fee for breakfast or lunch, again, for this school year. And a pass schedule is updated, and then the student fee language relating to educational benefits. And then remove the executive order, which was 20-81. Any questions? All right, and finally the activities one. Lisa?
So I don't have page numbers. From what I could find the last time it was severely updated was in 2001, which is the year our volleyball coach graduated. So I really went through, I changed just a lot of verbiage in it just to make it flow a little bit nicer and everything. A couple of the key points that I wanted to point out is it did enter the part. If we have a junior high program that has 15 kids in it, we will create a second team, and 15 or over that way, and I'll do everything in my power to schedule more games. We've had situations in the past where we have 27 graders and trying to go have them all on one team, everybody gets 2 minutes of playing time rotating. And then the other part that I put in there really talked about fair playing time versus equal. And fair means how is your behavior in practice? Did you show up for practice? Are you working hard? You know, and so your level of playing would be equivalent to your level of how you put in. And that is in the junior high level also. Just trying to situation, that is going to be hard to have a second team, but I can work with both of them, and how they did it last year, they had an offensive team that played all offense first half and played defense that first half, and then at halftime they switched so that those kids could play both. So the verbiage changes a little bit for football because I'm just not, I may be able to get a couple games like with Cass and Larry, but that's sort of where we're at, and it's always I'm waiting for numbers to see what's at. But that's kind of the explanation of the changes. And then next year when there's changes, I'll have the page numbers.
Okay, this is an action item. Are there any questions on any of these we can clarify for you?
Motion to approve all handbooks.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second?
second by Ron. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay. Approval of handbooks is done. Thank you. Dodge County Hockey.
That means Lisa's up again to talk about our hockey status and the plan moving forward.
So Castle Manville is the co-op host, and so they have voted to delete the co-op, and if everyone signs it in the co-op, then it would be official right now. My suggestion is that Pine Island does not sign it. We have 3 seniors on it, and if we don't sign it, it'll last for 1 more year. The reason for ending the co-op is that it went from single A to double A, and there's a feeling that that is not where they want to be competitively. And usually when you create a co-op, you don't really realize how big you keep growing. So, for example, KM is currently at 652 kids, and Byron's at 660. When the co-op comes back together, the boys would also ask Triton and Hayfield to join, and that would keep them at single A. Pine Island is too big to be part of that. The girls, on the other hand, have different limit numbers, and so KM and Byron will only be asking Hayfield back. ZM is planning on not signing it also, because they also have kids that are in it. We currently have an 8th grade girl who's very competitive. So I have been doing, reaching out to other areas, Red Wing. I did hear about Faribault. I've reached out to Lure just to find out where are some possibilities in the 2022-23 school year for us. There's also no guarantee that in 2 years where Cam and Byron might have so many that they would be double A again, so then we might drop Hayfield and Triton. So it's very fluid, and it's, when you make a co-op, you're trying to get a team, and as you grow, that kind of, the purpose of the co-op isn't necessarily needed. They were very open, plenty of time to talk to us about it. I had the parents talking to me, and just knowing that we can get through this year with our seniors, I think is really important, and they absolutely understand that we have Pine Island students in best interest with that. So, is there any questions?
That's a tough one. That's too bad. We just talked about the state high school league rules of trying to be a learning tool, and you were trying to fight numbers to be in a competitive class.
And Casson went through every appeal process possible, like this doesn't make sense. And really what it happens, like Hayfield has 2 players, Triton has 2 players, ZM has 2 players, and you might have 2 players 1 year, and then 2 years later you have 2 more players. So it's not consistent that, oh, well, we'll just pair with ZM. Well, then we might have 4 players. And so it really is, that co-op is really ideal. And so Brock at CAM really has been fantastic in trying to find any way to not make it happen, but numbers speak, so.
So by voting no to this, we can ensure at least the seniors will have a senior season.
We will continue through this year, and then at the end of hockey, we will be done with Dutch County.
How many juniors do you have in there?
I don't have them on the current list. I have a current 8th grader, so I just went through last year's list of who.
So none.
So.
No.
No,
Well,
I just, like I say, don't.
And there may be that go out.
You don't
I'm
say.
just going off of my list from last year, so it doesn't mean they can't go out.
It is not an action item, so we wanted to let you know what the plan was, that we are not signing it. So if you are opposed to that, then that would be where the conversation is, and then move it to an action item. But really wanting to protect the ability for our seniors to continue to play.
And I do want you to know that we're mindful of those that are part of it, that don't get to continue after this coming year, what they get to do. Our eighth grade is really, really good, so really seeking just ideas for her, so.
And it's not only co-ops that deal with this, so this often comes into play with shared programs as well, or cooperative programs paired, that will put them into the next class, so.
We'll be sure to thank Cassie for their efforts to try to work around it to maintain the cooperative.
Yeah, I really feel like he did a fantastic job in trying everything. He's become really good friends with Minnesota State.
Okay. All right, then move forward with that.
Thank you.
Strategic plan.
All right, so hopefully many of you were involved in the strategic plan for this year. So we started with a number of listening sessions. Then we brought together a committee of parents and staff and the board and surveys. A lot went into this, and then we had a writing team put together everything that was shared in that. So this is the first draft that you are seeing of the completed strategic plan. Really what we wanted to have was a plan on a page, and that's what you have. This would be back to back. So we're looking at our strategic plan with our vision being leading the way in education innovation for a world-class experience. Our mission, provide a welcoming, premier learning environment that challenges, empowers, and prepares students to be successful in an ever-changing world. And then core beliefs, welcome all students and believe all possess unique talents and gifts. Build community trust, confidence, and partnerships through communication, transparency, and accountability. Strive to excel through continuous innovation and creativity. Build positive relationships, which we believe are the foundation of successful schools. Strategically plan for future needs and growth of the district. I'll pause there before moving on. Any questions about any of that, of the process? I know board members, you were a part of that. Then if you go to the next page, so our aims in the district for a number of years have been people, processes, and performance. And that came about because sometimes when we talk about being very specific with high academic standards, that type of thing, when our transportation department or building and grounds are writing their goals, that's a difficult goal for them to wrap their head around. But when we changed it to people, processes, and performance, that makes sense to everyone. So that's really been our aims or focus. And so under that, we have what our strategies are. And under people, that first one, I just want to point out how they can sound very generic, but the details will come. So build positive relationships by identifying and implementing strategies. So your first question would be, what strategies are those? The cabinet then takes this document. They will choose their goals as these foundational statements and then put in the details of, let's say transportation chooses that as one of their goals. They will identify exactly what those strategies will be to build positive relationships with their staff and the students. From there, ensure diverse and inclusive academic, physical, and social emotional resources and supports are in place for all students. Ensure a sense of belonging and engagement by involving all stakeholders. And then moving on to processes, formalize an intentional process for curriculum and instructional practices to be reviewed, monitored, and updated. Successfully transition from participation within a cooperative educational district to one thriving with local programming. Maintain fiscal stability by constantly monitoring resources and opportunities. Strategically plan for future growth of the district to meet the evolving needs and expectations. And finally, performance, provide high-quality, innovative programming to meet all students' needs in an ever-changing world. Offer authentic skills to prepare students for life beyond the school setting. And I'll just mention there, our house construction, our nursing program, our firefighter, all of those came about because of that. And then ensure success within the World's Best Workforce Plan by continuously reviewing and updating strategies. So I'm asking if you want to approve this as is, or if you have recommendations for any changes, and then it would come back.
I like how it came together.
Thank you. Keep the flies.
And Tammy, do we get visibility to some of those goals and strategies for each of those? Do we?
Yes,
To
so,
that level?
right, so what you'll get back from this now, when we talk about a cadence of accountability, you'll
Yeah.
see where the cabinet member goals are.
Okay.
Yeah, and then collectively, you'll see where everyone is on their goals. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
This is the process of, since the spring, and we've had 3 official full meetings,
Mhm.
right? Besides the countless,
Surveys and
sessions.
feedback
Yeah.
sessions, yeah.
so it's been a process. It was a good one. Really did a good job from the.
I would agree.
And we're gonna do it again.
We're gonna do a refresh in 2 years.
Yep, which is a good thing, I
I would move to approve it as is.
Thank you.
Motion by Ted, second by Emily. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Okay, strategic plan is passed, and thank you to all of those who participated in the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Underground fuel tanks.
All right, so this is, for your information, our underground fuel tanks failed. And so they are tested on a regular basis, and these are the ones that are by the bus garage. And so we had some decisions to make. One of them was to replace them with fuel tanks that would not be below ground, which would allow for us to relocate the transportation building at some point. That seemed like the best plan starting out. However, as we went down that path and had the fire marshal here as to where those tanks could go and what the process was to remove the existing tanks and having to hire IEA to monitor that, to ensure the removal of them, it just became cost prohibitive. And so we were able to fix them at this point for a fraction of the cost. So that's what we're doing at this point. And we would have to revisit it if we choose to move the transportation, the buses to a different location at some point in the future. But in looking at it, it was about $20,000 to put in above ground tanks. And we were able to fix everything and be done with it for about $6,000. So at this time, it just wasn't favorable for us. Any questions on that?
No pun intended, but good job digging deeper into that.
Yeah, thanks.
Finding out what's a better way to go. All right, thank you. Wrestling room, fire marshal requirement.
So my next happy one here. So the fire marshal deemed that our mats in our wrestling room, the ones on the wall, were not coated appropriately for being fire resistant. So they had to be removed and replaced. And so we are in the process of doing that.
How old were those mats? Were they somewhat new because of flooding or no?
No, do you know, Lisa, how old they were?
They weren't old enough to me to come out.
Okay.
That's not part of the new mats.
Yeah.
No. Those were actually wrestling
They were
mats.
put in 14.
Okay.
So yeah, it would have been flooding.
And then the codes changed, it's hit a lot of different schools.
So we're not the only victims. Got it.
It's actually kind of on the go-to list, I would say right now, many districts are having to replace them.
Well, it is, I guess, safety.
I know.
And that cost for replacement was?
Yeah, Lisa, do you remember what the cost was?
I think our best quote was 19,000.
Good thing you say 14,000 on this.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well done. Okay, all right. Next one, new grant received.
So this is a grant for $5,000 for the Eco Literacy School, which is a partnership with UMR, which you're probably very familiar with, and it's from Rural Schools Collaborative, Compeer Financial Fund. So we'll have that on accept that on the next agenda. Just wanted you to be aware.
a really great mentorship program to kind of bridge both college students with high school students.
It
It's
is.
a great opportunity.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great job in writing for getting that. Okay, now we move on to we changed our order to go to back-to-school mask requirement. As we begin this discussion, I want to remind the people present that the board meeting is a board meeting held in the public arena, so it's not a discussion or opportunity to debate with us. We'll talk through our perspectives and thoughts, try to walk around the topic, get a full 360 off of it, and work for consensus and thoughts on that. And once it's voted on, then it's done. So again, we appreciate your continuation of listening as we listen, and not to engage us in our conversation as we talk to each other. So thank you. All right, so we have a question about masks, and we had the MSBA come forward. No, sorry, it was MSBA with some ideas, right?
Well, they just gave some background on each of the options that you have in front of you. So what I prepared here for you is just an overview of the decisions that you have in front of you. And really, it's returning to school with 3 decisions. A, mask required pre-K through 12. B, mask required for PK through 6, and option 712, parental choice for all. And just considerations that I wanted to make sure that we noted as you're considering the options here. Children ages 12 plus are eligible for vaccination, and I know you spoke to the vaccinations. 2021 cleaning protocols, all of those will stay in place. Our double bus routes will not continue because of that expense. We are continuing the lease with St. Paul Lutheran, as you earlier approved, for our early childhood programming to alleviate some of that space. The school within the school model at the elementary has returned to the design structure at that school. We do not have an A-B instruction model in place. We expect to have our students here every day. Synchronous and asynchronous instruction is not an option. That's where we had some students learning from home and some in person at the same time. We did talk about that provisional application for approval for emergencies. Students in quarantine will have limited daily contact with the licensed teacher. We have a plan in place for that. It would be about an hour a day that they would have access to a teacher rather than that online full day. And
How
then,
does that work for high school? Just quick, is that like if it's separate subjects, would they have an hour per teacher then?
No. So it would be, I like to think of it a little bit more like homebound instruction. So if we had a student out for a period of time, there would be a teacher who would check in with them and make sure they had all their materials, what questions they might have, but they wouldn't have each individual teacher.
Just remember high school, we only have 4 classes at a time.
Yeah, yep.
So
No, I'm just trying to.
and the details of that are yet undecided.
Correct.
How that would all look for accountability of each student.
The current quarantine recommendations include anyone who was within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative period of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. And then quarantine length depends on each individual situation, ranging from 7 to 14 days. And our nurses are also here, so if there's any additional questions, I'm sure they're happy to answer that. And then the exceptions to quarantine include both students were correctly wearing a mask, regardless of vaccination status, or students are fully vaccinated or have been COVID-19 positive within the last 90 days. And then I just also noted on the bottom, Olmsted County Public Health is providing a guidance meeting, and that is tomorrow at 10 a.m. So just letting you know. And I don't know if our health, I'll let you just take it from there. You can ask questions if you'd like. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer anything too.
I have one question that comes right up. Federal mandates are still requiring masks on buses.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out.
No choice that we have from a busing standpoint, they have to.
Correct.
We have no choice on that.
Correct. Thank you for bringing that up.
What is the quarantine? If you test positive, then you stay home for 7, 14 days?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Do you want to speak to the varied duration of quarantines?
If you test positive, you are a positive person, and you're asked to isolate away for 10 days from after your symptoms started. If you're quarantining the
think so.
Does a negative COVID test interrupt that quarantine time at all, or is it 10 or whatever days, no matter what it is test?
At this point, a negative COVID test is not laid out in the CDC recommendations. It's expected to come in the next 2 weeks.
So there'll be clarification of that in the future.
And is it a specific test that it has to be? Can it be?
Typically in the past, it's been no antigen testing. It's been the PCR test.
It's the
that's
PCR.
readily available.
Is the district offering any testing format
Yeah,
this year?
keep going. Yes, we're talking about that as well.
Any testing format offered to staff or students this year coming up?
So in the past, they've supplied school nurses with saliva testing kits, and the turnaround rate in that is about 24 hours. At this point, no recommendation has been yet to do that. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll hear that. Over the summer, they asked us to keep those kits. It's a pretty seamless process that worked well last year.
Is the region or the state asking for any process to just do randomized checking for positive testing, or any volunteer like they did last year through some programs?
No, what we did last year is we offered it every 2 weeks
Mhm.
for anyone who wanted to participate. And that number towards the end was about, what was the average?
Normally it was like 20 to 25. At the end, it was like 10.
I think we just saw a natural decline in those feeling that the test was helpful because a lot of our staff were getting vaccinated. So it just naturally dwindled a little bit. People maybe wanted to participate in that test because they knew they were going to be traveling, or just based on personal decisions. But it started out really strong, and I think naturally, like many staff programs, the numbers just dwindled a little bit at the end. But
I did that all the way through the year, because I'm a stats teacher and sampling is important. But I did it because even if I was vaccinated, and I am, I still felt, I still had anxiety. I don't know why, but so, yeah, I was so curious.
You said the class sizes, they're going back, the school model's going back. What was the class size in elementary?
This year or last year?
Last year, now what will it be going back to?
Yeah, Dr. Hanson, you want to speak to that?
Last year it was 18-ish, and this year we are back to our board recommended ranges. So from the board, that is 16 to 22 grades K-1, and right now we just added a section of kindergarten because our numbers were increasing, so those numbers are actually very small right now in those kindergarten classes. And then in grades 2 through 4, the board recommended ranges are 20 to 26, and we're across the board there for grades higher to the top, closer to the top end of the range, some grades lower at the bottom of the range.
And are they able to be 3 feet apart?
In an elementary classroom with 26 kids, not practically. I would say
3 or 6?
Well, I'm going, I'm pretty sure 3 is the recommendation.
Yeah, they've talked about both 3 and 6. 6 is what you're typically seeing.
So it's not like basketball out there?
in reality, elementary kids don't stay distant very well anyway, even when it's that way. So,
Neither is Jenny's kids.
yes, exactly. Jenny would be a good recruit how that has gone this summer, and so she would be a good person to talk to as well. But no, in a class of 26, we would not be at that distance. But even if we physically could be, practically, we probably wouldn't be.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, in the current summer academy, what are our class sizes been?
ranged significantly, and attendance was different from day to day. But I would say our high numbers, and Lisa,
Our goal was about 20. I think we did get up to about 24.
especially Spanish immersion.
Yeah. And they were not masked.
They were not masked, and so my next question would be, did we have many cases or did we have any COVID infections during that?
Not that I've
reported.
What program were you addressing when you asked that question? What program?
The summer academy program.
Academy.
Which is a voluntary participation piece.
When we're saying 20 kids, we're talking about 12 and under, right? Or are we talking about?
That
It
was
was fourth grade and under, and then we had, in the middle school, we had probably about 30 kids total, but they rotated all together between fifth and eighth.
Okay.
Any other questions, general questions? And we've done a good job as a board to discuss and walk around topics. We have the right as a small board to address a possible motion or ideas of a motion before making a motion, so we don't have to go back and redo it and go through all the processes there. So it's always nice to talk about it, so what we think. So again, each vote is individual, each vote is respected, and it's really just about sharing our thoughts on this, so we can kind of either just talk ourselves through something and help each other through it, so we can come to a consensus at all, if at all possible. If not, that's okay too. So with that then, I'll open it up if any of you would like to speak to it, to share your thoughts. And if you're comfortable, we'll walk through each of us to kind of give your own perspectives on it. You okay with that? Yep. Okay, would anyone like to start? And again, this is not any discussion or debate with the people here. You're witnessing a meeting in process. So.
Can you guys speak up so we can hear you?
Thank you.
Sure. We're gonna get the microphone out too.
You should have, just make sure you can get to the mic. They're on the table.
Oh, they're on the table.
Here you go. You got two.
Or I'm not sure if we'd have feedback if we brought the mic up.
I always start, so someone else can have a turn.
Okay.
So they always start, so someone else can have a turn. You got highlighted notes.
Would you like me to begin?
So I don't do public speaking. I wrote my thoughts down, hence why I have the paper. Folks, I'm tired. I am tired physically and I am tired mentally. And I know that I am not the only one in this room. The first thing that I'd like to say first, I am appalled, which isn't even a strong enough word for what I am feeling, for the bullying that happened on the community Facebook page all this week. In one post, you have, the maskers are going to have a protest and bully the school board into getting their way. Followed down by a few more, if your kids want to be masked, then you better make sure they don't hang around my kids. With a couple more posts calling maskers a bunch of Karens. Reading those comments after comments from both sides, the personal emails, the voicing of the dirty opinions, and the dirty stares that I receive, that my children receive, that my husband receives when we walk around town in our masks, not imposing our views onto you folks. It's making me wonder, where did all of our compassion go that we say that we have? We no longer have that. Not only do I have to worry about COVID, I now have to worry about the retaliation against me, against my children, my husband, and my property for the choice that we have to make. As a mother, reading those comments after comments after comments, I can't even begin to prepare my children for the abuse that they are going to receive from the bullies of these other children. All because their parents sit on the school board and made a decision which they felt was protecting the student body and the employees of this school as a whole. We are a business. We provide a service. If you don't like Target, you go to Walmart. You don't like Menards, you go to Fleet Farm, vice versa. If you don't like the rules and the policies that we set in place, you as a parent have the freedom to go elsewhere. I am sorry that you feel that this way, but the most important thing right now is that your child is still getting an education, whether it be here or whether it be somewhere else. There are families who want to get their children vaccinated, but they cannot yet. We have children in the elementary school who have older siblings who will be exposed to those who don't either want to vaccinate or mask up, which then gets brought back to the elementary school and to home. And if you don't know, children are petri dishes. They might not show symptoms, but they do spread it on to those that are vulnerable. You have the medical freedom to say no to the vaccine, just as we as a school have the freedom as a business to set rules and policies that we feel will benefit this school as a whole. I am personally making my decision from firsthand experience of having COVID myself, watching my own children having it, the firsthand experience of wondering which family member was going to find my dead body in the morning because I could not breathe as I went to sleep. The firsthand experience of failing as a mother because the hospital was too full to take my child with a raging 105 fever for 3 days. And I can't ease my children's suffering from COVID that they were experiencing. As I said, I am physically and I am mentally tired from working in the ICU and watching what this disease is doing. My choice is not political at all. I am neither red, I am neither blue. I am down the middle. This is not swaying my voice. It is not to try to take your freedom away. It is me being compassionate and not wanting your family to have to go through what my family has gone through and is still going through with the PTSD. I am sorry if that you do not see it that way, and I am sorry that you no longer feel that Pine Island can teach your children the way you want. I just ask that we bring back the compassion that I know that is somewhere buried in this community and stop with all the bullying from both sides.
Okay, anyone else like to go?
Very strong, Emily.
And I don't speak.
Right. I have a very different approach. I've tried to stay off of the community Facebook sites and tried to just gather facts from what I'm seeing around data. So data for me focuses more on, what are the vaccines providing and what are the vulnerabilities out in the community. So for me, the vaccines appear to be effective against the alpha, or the primary strain of this. They appear to still be effective against the delta strain from the numbers that I'm seeing. The people who are ending up in the hospitals, I've talked to doctors, friends of mine. People who are ending up in the hospital and on ventilators are unvaccinated adults. The kids that are getting still coming down with COVID are, obviously, if they're 0 to 11, they don't have an opportunity to be vaccinated, but they're still the ones that are infecting then adults who have chosen not to be vaccinated. I'm not seeing factual numbers that present to me a reason to put masks on everybody all the time. I think there's good reason to put them on large groups. I think having them on in the buses is a good idea. But if you're sitting in a classroom with your 26 kids that are in that classroom for 7 hours a day, all the time, at the same time, I don't see why those kids need to be masked up. I just don't think that, number one, that they're gonna wear a mask correctly for 7 hours. I just don't think it's gonna happen. And so recommending it, I'm behind recommending it. I also have personal experience with COVID. For me, it wasn't nearly as bad as you personally. My mother-in-law almost died from it, so I've seen the same negative effects. She's got long-term COVID issues. But for me, I can't I can't see a reason to mandate masks for 100% of our kids. That's my opinion.
100% K through 12 or
I can't see it. I
At
can't
all.
see it actually helping. I can see it if we can find areas, you know, if we're in the halls or if we're in larger groups, that the kids need to bring a mask to school, and if we're in the gym and there's 200 kids in there that you're not normally associating with on a day-to-day basis, you should maybe have your mask on. And, you know, if that's a 30-minute presentation in the auditorium, I don't think it's too much to ask that everybody, all 400 kids at the K4 school are masked up when they're in a large group together for 20 minutes. But 7 hours a day, I think you lose a lot more. You know, a smile goes a long way, and you can't smile at me through a mask. So, you know, I think you get more education out of a face-to-face education than you will spread disease. So, that's where I stand on it.
So we just going down the line?
Sounds like it.
I do have a couple more questions, sorry. I just like to know stuff, helps me. Lunchroom, how is that going to be handled in the elementary?
So our plan is to go back to the lunchroom. So last year we served in classrooms. We would have breakfast would be in classrooms, but they would be eating in the cafeteria.
In mass or?
In mass?
In math, like K through 4 or kindergarten and then first
Well,
grade?
it would be our, what we have for the schedule. I can't tell you if that's K,
Like
then
middle
1, then 2.
It's a grade level.
Grade at a time?
Goes down. Yep. But all of those things, I think are, we want a balanced approach. So if that isn't what we end up needing to do, we have to change, we'll change. Like,
Right.
we'll figure out ways to make it work and be safe the best that we can with that. I did think, Christy, after your last question, one thing I did not say was last year, even though we tried to see kids as far apart as possible, and we did eat lunch with us, and we had dividers, so that was helpful, but even then, so last year when all of those things were in place, even then, it really was hard to keep the kids apart. So I don't see that the huge difference in terms of their closeness. They were still close last year. They're just like magnets, it's hard to keep them apart.
Yeah, right, and the reason why I'm asking this question, obviously, is that we successfully did it for a year, I think. I don't recall anything bad coming out of in-person learning with our elementary. In fact, I thought we had very good results. I mean, it was a very proud moment that our district was one of the few districts that was able to provide in-person learning for our elementary kids, which all had to mask all of last year. So that's what I'm struggling with. We successfully did it. So if we can successfully do it, is it really that hard? And maybe that's not a statement of all of this next year. We need to be masked. This is where I'm coming from. I'm asking everyone to listen to where I'm coming from. Maybe it's not a matter of all of this year we need to be masked. Maybe it's a matter of maybe we need for the first 2 weeks just see how it goes if we're really worried about numbers. Maybe it's just for the first month we do this, see how it goes. If numbers are not going crazy, because that's really right now what we're speculating. We don't know, right? We know it's kind of running rapid in the south.
No, it's here.
Right? I think it's here.
Oh, it's.
I'm hearing it. I'm not disagreeing with that, but not everyone's sold on that yet.
Oh, yeah.
But is it a matter of us just buying time for a month to see how things going? If it doesn't really impact us that much, is it an option for us to say, okay, we've tried it for a month, we feel like it's okay, the kids have all been together, they've been congregating, maybe we go off without masks for a couple of weeks to see how it goes. I'm just trying to provide options here, because right now we have the 3 options, it's all or none. And so that's what I'm suggesting, because I'm not necessarily all over on one side, I'm not necessarily all on the other side. I hear everyone's opinions, I totally get it. I want to have choice for my kid, but I also don't want to take the possibility that I'll be jeopardizing the health of a greater staff, of the greater, student population. I don't want that on my shoulders either. Me saying, no, I don't want my kid to mask, yes, is controlling his future within the school year and his health, but that's also potentially affecting others. And that's the difference here. If I wore a seatbelt, that's my fault for not wearing a seatbelt. I don't hurt anyone else but myself. But this isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about possibly affecting. But again, I don't know what the stats are yet. It's not super crazy, like your data. It's not, I keep looking at all the numbers and I just don't have a good feeling yet, right now, up here. If I was down south, it'd probably be a whole lot different.
Well, can I jump in there for a second?
Go right ahead.
Because again, the research that I was doing is, and to your seatbelt point, that was one of the things that I was thinking about. 24 hours driving out to Maine, 24 hours driving back to Maine, right? Your seatbelt is your choice to wear. Not really, because you can get a ticket and whatever, right?
Yes.
But if you crash, you die.
Yes.
Right?
That's on you.
Right. That's you choosing not to get vaccinated. You get COVID, you die.
Totally agree.
Right?
Yep.
So should I, as somebody that got vaccinated, not drive because somebody else might not be wearing a seatbelt so that I don't crash with them and kill them?
I don't disagree with that. But I worry about is all of our 12 and younger that have no choice to get vaccinated at this moment in time.
Because they have older siblings that are in middle school that are mixed with the ones that are 12 and older.
So that's where my conundrum is. If that was an option, and again, parents can make that decision when that option is there, then I feel like the onus is on the parents then in that. I mean, as a public entity, I don't know where we would, but I feel responsible for 12 and under.
So I'm gonna interject there and say, let's try to let us all speak.
Yeah,
to it
so
before we
that's
come
where
back
I'm
to
at.
No, I
You
get
can
it.
move it.
So we'll
It's in the
just
middle.
do a pin in it and we'll come back to it and just to kind of let ourselves speak through it.
Yep.
Can I
But I
just
think you're gonna say
interject
the same
one?
thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that, yeah, there, you have 3 options here, but like you said, there can be any variation. It can be 2 weeks or, however you want to structure that is completely up to you. We were going to say something? I should have been
So
quiet.
Christie has now introduced another dimension, which is not just what we could have possibly been interpreting here as all year. So she's, if I interpret that right, that we could look at it differently besides all or none, but as a compromise of those two. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and it could even be a flavor of maybe it's just the 12 and under, right? Because they're the ones that cannot get vaccinated at this moment in time.
Right? I'm gonna reserve the right to go last. So there you go. I'll pull a card on you.
Well, since you're skipping the order, I'll go next then.
There we go.
I don't want to go second to last, so, all right.
That'll be you.
Yeah, Christy, I thought very similar thing, to be honest with you. I wear a mask, obviously, because I work with immunosuppressed patients. I work in transplant, so all of my patients are either immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. Played the COVID game, was not fun, don't want to play it again. But most of why I wear my mask is that if I catch it again, I'm losing out on work. Any threat of giving one of my patients COVID would break my heart. I lost patients over the last year that I've known for 5 years and more. One I even saw a month before he died. So it's not the fact of me being afraid of getting it, it's the fact of me giving it. So, sorry. I don't public speak, so my emotions go a little bit high. I'm an introvert, so I don't talk much. I'm a wallflower. The greatest goal for our students and our children is to be in school face to face, correct? Correct. So, ultimately, if the government mandates a certain percentage of students have COVID in your school, they might tell us we need to go distance learning. Not saying they're going to, they might. So, if wearing the masks can help keep our kids face-to-face, not distance learning, then I would like to see our kids in masks. But at the same time, I feel like it is the parents' choice, but parents, you need to teach them it's not taking away your right or your freedom. It's showing compassion to the elderly, to the immunocompromised. You're protecting. You're not being oppressed, you're protecting. If you don't want to get your child vaccinated, that is your choice. I have a family member who did not vaccinate any of his kids for anything. That's his choice. I love him. I love his kids. It's your choice to vaccinate your children. But the goal is to have our children face-to-face in school. The best way we can do that is to try to protect as much as we can. Because if a mandate comes through, we can at least say we're ahead of the game because we're showing compassion and just being human. Because we're all in it together, no matter what side you're on. You know, politics, I heard some people talking about politics. It's not politics, it's just being human and showing compassion. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It's just being human and caring about one another, no matter what. So, I like Christy's idea. If we just try the masks and see what happens. And then if the numbers don't go up, which hopefully, God willing, they don't, and we can keep them low, then we can start pulling back. It's easier to pull something back than to push something forward. But
Could you please be quiet?
Yeah, reserve the right to speak, please, thank you.
Sorry, but can I just say one?
No, thank you.
No.
No, it's, we appreciate that, but the moment was there, so.
On the lecture, so you guys can discuss.
Well, yeah, true, okay, so I'll address that, try to address each other on the board as we
Sorry.
speak, so.
I'm sorry.
Point taken, thank you. Apologize for that.
Sorry. But that's ultimately how I feel, is that it's just, I would like to see, and you know, even just pre-K to 6, because of the being able to vaccinate at 12 if you choose to, but I just feel like it's better to put something up front and pull it back than to try to implement it then after it's already happened.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
that wasn't meaning to lecture, I'm sorry. My father was a history professor, so he had a soapbox all the time, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your comments, Adam.
So I'm probably the odd duck on this whole board because I no longer have a student in the school district. Mine have all graduated. I do, however, have a teacher that is a daughter of mine here. You know, I've listened to the comments of the people earlier, and there's some good valid points. Yes, our students do learn better when they can visually see the teacher talking. And I agree with that. I also feel that our students will learn better in the classroom, in person, with a mask on than they will at home, online. But I also understand the fact that, yeah, it's a parent's right. I'm not trying to push parents to say, yes, you have to put your mask on. You have to send your kids to school with a mask. But I also feel our students will get a better education in the school with a mask on than they will being at home. And if without a mask on, our numbers go crazy and they have to be at home, the education will diminish. So I feel that with what Christy said, we start out with masks on and see what happens. I personally feel the education will be better in the classroom with a mask than having to push kids at home.
So I want to first start out with thank you for having a civil conversation with respect and just also having an open conversation with different viewpoints, right? That's why we are on the board and why we represent this community. And so I think it's really important that we're having those conversations that are tough, that hopefully we're instilling our children to have difficult conversations, but still be respectful. So thank you to you guys for listening to all of these viewpoints. Our current mission as an educational institution is to provide a safe learning environment that challenges and prepares students for the future. And as a school board member, as a mom, it is my responsibility to ensure we're living up to that mission. And we know that our students learn best in an environment where they can be physically present with their teachers, with their specialists, with whoever they need to be with to have the day that we hope they come home and say, I had a great day because I was with my friends today. I was with my teachers, I was on the playground. I was able to participate in a lab that I hadn't been able to participate in. Like, this is what we know as an educational experience that I want my children to have and why I am a member of this community and a member of the school board. And so we have amazing educators here tonight that are passionate about these conversations. We have amazing community members that are passionate to bring students to the school district and entrust teachers to teach them and educate them to be future leaders, but also kind, compassionate, real people. And so I think that it's important for me to say that until all of our children can be offered a safe alternative to protect themselves and others, we have to make safety a priority if that's our mission. And to me, that looks like there has to be a mask required for students to be able to be in that safe environment.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for entertaining my request to go last. I want to piggyback on what you said, Molly. We are elected officials, put in a great environment of education, and we're here to make a tough decision. We've been here before, when it came to last spring, deciding when to come back in person. And with that note, I would say that was a great victory last year. It was a great victory to be able to come back in the building together last year, with all those things that happened. So when you look at some great statements I've read, and I've been trying to listen and try to intake as much as I can, we are educated people, we're learned, we try to make the best decision with the information we have. And one phrase came across my ears, and that was that with everything that we've experienced for a year and a half, we need to enter this school year with humility and prudence. We can't be cavalier and say, oh, whatever. Cavalier and just say, whatever. It's been a year and a half, we're good. We have to learn from what we've seen. We have to enter this with humility, knowing that we don't still know everything, but we know more. But we have to have prudence. And with prudence comes due diligence. We know for a fact, and I'm going to speak off of your great points you've made today, and all points are good when listened to. All points are valid when listened to. It's our job to decide, without consequences by anyone here, of our choices, except for those of the kids in the school, hoping that our main goal is met. So we respectfully listen to your comments, and we appreciate you listening to ours and talking to each other. If our number one goal is to educate our children, then we've learned from the experience that the best way to do so is in the building. You've heard tonight that we will not have the option of asynchronous or blended hybrid format when they are not here via either positive or by exposure and quarantining. They will have to experience a different learning model than they did last year. And that's going to be the old school way of just having information available, but you're not going to be instructed like the kids would be in the building. So it's a tough decision. It's our job to keep everyone protected. If we feel that the best way to educate them is in the building, and the best way to keep them in the building as long as possible is to mask, then it's probably what we should do. But I agree with your comments wholeheartedly that I think we need to look at this multidimensionally, and that is that this is not a goal of ours to be in a mask all year. We do not want to start the year with masks, but the situation that's in front of us with the Delta variant and the fact that if the high school is treated differently than the elementary, because the elementary is not vaccinated, you come home into multi-grade households and the conversation continues. But the concern is still there. And that's the humility part. So if our goal is to keep them in the building as long as possible, to educate them the best way we know how, then that mask needs to be on. This is my perspective now. But I believe that we do look at this and talk about this in a way that it is not our goal to be all year long. It is to be ahead of the game, not behind it. We don't want to, we've learned the lesson of reactionary. So we want to consider the fact that if we mask for some time frame and revisit it, then we do that with the intent that hopefully our win is after quarter one we're done. Now we know for a fact that without COVID, the fall is a tough year for everything. And that point was brought up earlier about flu and things like that. And we know that happens. This is not the flu. And if we know what happens from this, and it's different than the flu, that probably behooves us to be ahead of the game. So we already know that the fall is dangerous with anything. This introduces itself. So I'm a firm believer that we should mask to protect our kids, to keep them in school for as long as possible. And if we do it right, the masks come off sooner than later, but we are making ourselves to be put in a position of being ahead of it as opposed to behind it. So again, I'm talking to you in my thoughts. It's blended a little bit of what you guys thought, but that's my perspective.
What source should we go to?
So we are talking together, please, so please honor that. We've listened. Now it's your turn, please. So please respect our environment here and our procedures. So again, you are not up to speak. You are witnesses to a public meeting. That moment is past. So afterwards, no problem. Now let us continue. Okay. So with that said, would anyone else want to discuss that further and share opinions of?
Can we look at the
insight?
timeline of first quarter and reconvening to see what the numbers are then? That
We
gives
can
you
talk about that
through
as
the
a
fall.
board. Yeah, that could be a part of it. It's a motion we're looking for. Yeah.
I have the calendar up here.
I think we do need to keep quiet in the room, please. Otherwise, you do have the right to leave. If we look at quarter one, that puts us into the end of October, beginning of November, correct?
And the first quarter is the 29th.
Now, we have 2 board meetings between that to look at the evidence presented in front of us, right? We can talk about it in a live approach, right? A dynamic approach and decide.
The 9th and the 14th.
The 9th and the 14th? And the motion we make tonight sets a bar, but it can be adjusted every meeting we meet, correct?
Do we still have our COVID response team meetings, or is
We
there
do not.
Oh,
any
really?
thought to continue?
Well, tomorrow we'll have an area meeting.
After the 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So we're not doing any sort of billboard or
The dashboard, you mean?
dashboards and all
Well,
that
it's still
stuff?
out there, it just hasn't
Well,
been.
we haven't updated that, no. Well, we haven't had any.
And the plan is to still do contact tracing and all that fun stuff, right?
So the concerns of the classroom involve not just being positive, but also quarantining. And we talked about the exposure scenario of who was considered to be exposed is changed based upon mask wearing or not, correct?
Yeah, that's what has me concerned. I'm worried about those that are just, they don't have it, but they were exposed to it. And now they have to go into, I think, a 10-day, I'm still confused by that.
But we'll find out.
10-day to 14-day quarantine, of which they cannot do online learning.
And that's still a lot to miss with the instructor right there.
It might not be as, I just worry about that. I really do worry
Well,
about that.
you know what, that brings up a great point, because this will be the first year this district experiences 4-period day at the high school level. For those of you that are not familiar with 4-period day, 4-period day is a block schedule that takes a year-long course and puts it into a semester. So it allows the student to have more access to more courses during the year, but it is intensive. Now, with that said, every teacher right now in the high school is trying to look at their curriculum and look at how can they get through the content in a semester. Now they'll have, I believe, 80 to 90-minute blocks. Have you decided on that yet? 88? So I will from experience that teaching in the block, they miss more. So it is not just 10 days, it is 20. So consider that in terms of the academic side of it. In the block schedule, they would, even though they're missing till 10 days, the content covered will be double that. And that would go even further for a skinny that's taught in a quarter only. So just a thought, we've never experienced that. I've taught it for 25 years, so I just want to bring that to the table for clarification, because it is a different, we're talking different numbers now if we talk about being gone.
But if that student was exposed and was wearing a mask correctly, they would be an exempt from quarantine.
Correct. I think so. That's, yeah.
So then we don't lose as much schooling.
If both people are wearing a mask correctly, there's no quarantine.
But if they're not, period, regardless of wearing it properly or not, if they're not wearing one, they're quarantined.
Unless they're vaccinated.
Correct.
Or have
90
had
days.
positive in 90 days plus.
Right.
True.
So,
What does that mean for elementary? Do we know?
What do you mean?
I'm just missing 10 days. I just know that, I'm glad to hear we didn't have it in the summer academy, but I do know in other districts where they've had summer programs, it was a huge pain for quarantining their son because they were exposed to somebody trying to get a negative test and then trying to confirm. But that wasn't even in the school year. I'm just curious, what's that effect like on an elementary student? Just curious, we probably don't have any.
Well, what we're looking at for the model of how that would work, so if an elementary student was quarantined, and we're still working out these details,
Yeah.
they would have 1 hour a day where they would be 3 to 4 p.m. roughly is when they would have that contact. So it'd be 1 hour in the afternoon.
But the parent would have to probably be with them. I'm thinking.
Well, depending on the
kindergarten.
age, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Well, then what do you begin to teach a first grader and a second grader
Yeah, I
in
know.
an hour?
Yeah. Yeah, because the whole family would probably have to quarantine if you have 2 kids. But if they
Unless
have a
they're
mask
vaccinated.
on, or have a mask on,
right.
right?
Well, no, the
but
kids
the
can't,
first grader
the
won't, yeah.
families. I think for a family then, right, so if you have a 8-year-old and a 14-year-old, if the 14-year-old is fully vaccinated, they wouldn't be excluded from school? Or would they if they're a family member?
So if you have a 14-year-old and that child is considered exposed, meaning they were deemed a close contact, if they're fully vaccinated, they would not need to quarantine based on the current recommendations. They would continue to monitor their symptoms and
Unless
the
they test
recommendations
positive, sure.
would be state, to
Yeah, I mean, again, everything I read and everything I look at least 412 and above. It just comes down to whether or not you vaccinated yourself. And it, any parent can say, I didn't want to vaccinate my child because I didn't think it was safe. If that child is then exposed, it was the parent's choice to keep them out of school for 10 days. It wasn't because we made a choice for them. So for me, mandating masks, at least for 12 and up, it's overstepping almost for what we are here to do. I can agree with arguments that, you know, I know masks work. I mean, and I know that COVID reaped a toll. Again, the numbers that I looked at, you know, I went to the past 6 years of how many people died in the US. And 2020, there were 600,000 more people that died in the US than the 6 years before that. So, I mean, it happened, it's not a lie. But I think we're promoting vaccination as a nation. I think if we say that, you know, to promote vaccination and then say, well, you got vaccinated, but it doesn't really matter because you're still gonna be doing all this other stuff regardless of what you did to protect yourself. It just seems kind of counterintuitive to me. So, I don't know, I can't get behind mandating masks fully for the entire school district. I can see looking at starting the district off on full mask, but I mean, again, it's an illness. I think we're still learning about it, yes. I don't think that it's, again, what I read, the spread is now way more contained within people that aren't vaccinating themselves, and again, that's their choice, and, you know, there's exceptions, obviously, when you work in the hospitals with the people. You know, it was disappointing to hear all of the comments that you were reading. Again, I tried to keep myself away from that because it infects you in a way that you're no longer seeing maybe the whole picture, you're seeing 15 people. And I would hope that the community, and ask the community that they talk to their kids and they, you know, it's no different than teasing somebody because they wear a green shirt instead of a red shirt, or that they wore this or that. You know, it's a choice, and, you know, if you want your choices to be respected as a parent and as kids to not wear masks, you need to also respect the choices that parents are making for kids, or even the kids themselves that are making to wear their own. So, again, after hearing everybody's opinions, I still believe numbers-wise that I mean, I wouldn't think that it's gonna help us any more than, you know, a regular flu at this point. I think we've made all the right choices up till now. I think masking when we masked, I think taking kids out of school and putting them at home made sense when it did. I think delaying our comeback to school till start of fourth quarter made sense when it did. I think now is also the time to, not recklessly, but, and I would like to continue to monitor what we're doing, and, you know, I know it's harder to put something in place later, but, you know, what I'm hearing feedback-wise from, you know, who's getting hospitalized, the ages of the people getting hospitalized, the percentages of kids that are getting these whatever it is, the MSI.
RSV.
I don't think it's RSV. MSC? MISC, I didn't write that one down, but the quantities of kids getting that is less than like 1/100%, right? So it's, we're turning this into something that we're afraid of because it's been scary, right? So it's a horror movie that we don't want to repeat. It was scary, so now we're just never going to repeat it by, I don't know. It's like leaving a cast on for 12 months because I don't want to break my leg again.
And I agree with that. I think where I'm kind of at that cusp, is like, I feel like we're still really early in being able to say it's not going to affect, because we're just really getting into the Delta stuff. And that's why I'm saying a temporary, and we gotta figure out what that means. Is it a quarter, or are we talking 2 weeks? Are we talking till the next meeting? But maybe we'll have more data and it will look exactly the same that you just said. And if that's the case, then I would feel better saying, okay, let's go without them. And then if things start changing the other way, then we need to talk about it again.
And you want to do that for the whole school or just for
We
the?
might have to, we
the K
don't
through
know.
11 or-
Oh, I'm saying under 12.
Under 12?
Yeah, I'm saying under 12.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
So
sorry,
under 12.
sorry. I'm not saying for the whole year. I thought you meant like
Yeah.
school year. No, I'm saying for those that cannot have a choice right now, getting vaccinated and protecting themselves. I think that is the compromise that I'm looking for, that hopefully will still give us some room for the safety of our kids. But then if things start changing, we start seeing a lot of large groups, if we ever got rid of the masks after our temporary, we need to revisit again. Because again, our ultimate goal is to have the kids in school.
So I could be on board with that, but I would still think that in the classrooms, those 20 kids that are together, they're gonna be spreading germs whether they got their mask on or off.
We did this for a year. We did this for a year.
I agree, and it wasn't as good as it.
Yeah, you said, I'm behind that, but we'll clarify what you're behind.
The younger than 12s, so up to 11 years old who aren't eligible for vaccines, masks, but I would say anywhere but in the classroom. In the classroom, I think they can opt, right? So again, recommend it. I think you'll end up in the classroom with 50% of the kids wearing masks. I think if the perception from parents and the community is that, you know, it's a choice, it's okay if they want to, it's okay if they don't want to, that you get some protection, some coverage. I just am not seeing it.
I could be wrong too, but I think that the whole reason we're talking about this is because if the option's there won't be very many masks. So we're just trying to mandate it to help it towards the side of being masked, I think. That's what the evidence has been out there for it being optional, is you're having a very low rate of masking. That's just what I'm saying, but just to clarify. Thoughts?
For those 12 and over who have the opportunity to be vaccinated for privacy reasons, will we know if they've been vaccinated or not? So when it comes to the exceptions, if they say, yeah, I've been vaccinated, are they telling the truth? How, can we force them to provide proof of vaccination?
No.
It does make it more complicated.
It does.
Right, I mean, it hasn't been a problem out in the corporate world. I mean, if you ask for proof of vaccination, it's not a violation of HIPAA. It's a violation of HIPAA if you, I don't know where it was, but the lack of proof of vaccination doesn't mean anything other than if you can't show it, you either don't have it or you're not gonna show it, and therefore you don't qualify for that, right? But I don't think it's illegal to say that if you don't show me proof of vaccination, then you don't qualify for the exception. And that's your choice whether you show it or not. You know, but I mean, in this community, I don't think it's that, I don't think anybody's hiding the fact that they are or aren't vaccinated. I really don't.
I think what it would look like is it would be an option, and then the follow-up would be with our health office to have conversations about quarantining, not quarantining, if they were in that situation.
Sure.
Right. I think that would be the one time you'd have to show proof so that you wouldn't have to quarantine.
Well, I mean, if you show it to a medical professional,
Then
it's
it's a
not.
HIPAA, it's
Or you
protected.
quarantine.
So,
Well, consider that and the discussion is great, but we also have to consider the implementation of the educators in the room.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to get down to the bare bones of just educating, and you add some filters of who is, who isn't, things like that, it does complicate the process of educating. And the point being made, can you tell if they are or not, and does that matter, and those things, and yeah, that's a tough one.
right, we can't require our teachers to be vaccinated, so therefore they wouldn't qualify for exception 2,
Yeah, but
You don't want to lose the educator either.
right?
then if you're unmasking those kids and the teacher is a kindergarten teacher or first grade teacher, then goes out to eat and just happens to get it unvaccinated, now you've exposed all those 26 kids in that classroom.
Right. So if every kindergartner is correctly wearing a mask for the entire 7 hours of the school day, then
The
they would
teacher
qualify
would
for exception 1.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Then
is
you
not gonna happen.
Well, again,
Yeah.
we have our goals, but if they aren't, we know what the answer is. So again, you're right. You know, it's not the perfect scenario, but.
I think if that were what you were entertaining, it would be it's optional.
Recommended. I would never use the word optional. I think recommended is the best word, although it becomes optional. I still think recommending it is a good stance to take. For 12 and over, I just don't see it. I can't get behind a mandate.
That's okay. I mean, we're all talking this through, and we're all trying to have our views of it, and we respect that, so that's why we're trying to talk ourselves around it, so.
And my point was just not identifying who's vaccinated, who's not. That's just gonna be,
Sorry to interrupt you.
that would not be, no.
Yeah, whole nother level. Any other thoughts? Now, for simplicity purposes, I want to entertain a motion as a board chair. I have the right to do that. I want to entertain a motion, and it can be struck down by a vote of no. That's not a problem. Majority rules, so that's okay. And no ill feelings towards any vote. That's what we're all about. It's all about representing ourselves. But before I do that, though, are there any other thoughts that you guys want to discuss? Any questions you need answered? Because we do want to kind of move along on this, so that's the only reason I'm saying that, just so we can kind of come to some completion of it. But are there any other questions? So for simplicity's sakes, I would recommend that upon my motion, with a second or not. If it's not, it's dead. If there's a second, then we move on to the vote. To not amend, but just strike down with a no vote, and then it gets complicated when we start amending, that's all. So we just voted as a no by majority, and then we can go on to another motion to try to get it right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I'm hearing is we have some concerns across the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion that we mandate masks K-12 for the first quarter, but can be visited upon every board meeting hereafter to pull back and relook at the policy. Again, this is step one in this process. You have to vote what you feel. But again, for simplicity, let's strike it down with a no vote if you don't want it, and we'll go back to another one as opposed to amending for simplicity purposes.
And this is in building.
Yeah.
Within the building, yep, just like last year, yep. When you're in the building, obviously the buses are required. That's not even in our realm of control, so. So that's my motion. Again, to clarify, is to mandate masks K-12.
Pre-K-12.
Pre-K-12, thank you. For the first quarter, but revisiting it every board meeting hereafter to address the success of that or the need of that.
When did the first quarter end again? It was November.
October
For
29th.
MEA?
Right after
10/29.
MEA.
After, way after.
After?
A week
10/29.
after. Okay, thank you.
Motion is made, is there a second? And if there is no second, it's dead. So second by Emily. Any further discussion or clarification?
Is part of this motion gonna end up reinstating our COVID analysis team, or are we gonna just do that separately as a administrative tool to?
However you want to move forward with that. And last time the board ended up addressing it anyway, because the recommendation was changed. So it probably just behooves you to keep it with the board.
So I guess we'll keep this motion as it is, but address that later.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay. Then, it's been open. Should we roll call this?
Might as well.
Yeah, just to be clear, so we're on.
Ms. Harney?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Miss Miller, yes. Mr. Morrison?
No.
Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson Rucker?
No.
Mr. Warnicki?
Yes. Okay, so the vote is 5-2. Okay, it passes. Again, great discussion. It's temporary. We visit it and we address it in real time, and that's it. Okay?
You have a start date? Sorry.
I assume when school starts.
Okay, I just wanted to know if our communication needs to be, okay,
So-
first day of school.
So that means then for clarification.
The first day of school or teachers in school?
That's what I'm asking.
For K through 12, we would say.
Pre-K.
Pre-K through 12.
Not
So the
True.
question for clarification would be, during their probably computer pickup, things like that, is the building a masked building?
Correct.
So, start date, that's, do you want to say upon, should we just go with the first day of school?
Sure. Yeah.
Be specific to the, in school,
That's when large groups are coming in.
the large group?
That's when the greater populations grow.
Didn't address.
Hmm?
Staff are not addressed in this.
Okay,
Just make a second one.
we can make a second motion for that. Okay, so the issue brought up is staff. The
Yeah,
motion
we
did not
should-
include staff, so we can make another motion to acknowledge, to address that.
Not staff or
So right now it's just students, so
anyone, maybe.
anybody in the building, so visitors, so on. Anyone would like to try a motion on that one? To clarify, we're talking about anyone in the building, not just students.
So
Wasn't for
I
activities.
think the motion needs to just be to include all visitors and staff in the current mask mandate for the school district.
So you think, you're saying we need to amend it?
It's not an amendment, it just, well, I guess it kind of is, but, you know, where Ron and I have voted no against this one,
But it's okay to keep a second motion and they go.
that's fine, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the school needs to be unilaterally the same, right? So, as a board, we voted to approve this mandate. I voted against it, Ron voted against it. It's our duty to support the board, right? So we are now a 7-person board supporting this action that we've taken, unfortunately, from my point of view, but it is what it is. And I think that we just need to make a motion, so I can make a motion to amend to the mask mandate all visitors and all building, any person in the buildings, any person in the Pine Island School buildings, is to follow the same mask mandate that exists for students.
Okay, don't always, I think we want to say amend.
No, it wouldn't be an amendment,
It would be
because we've
a
already
new-
voted
New
on.
motion,
But
correct.
don't say amend.
Okay,
And then
so make a
activities.
motion to
Have our activities addressed.
Okay.
activities indoors or outdoors,
Indoors.
right? So that would be in the buildings, right?
Okay.
So make a motion to
So first
include
of all,
all.
if we're gonna adjust that, then let's go to a second, and if we don't second it, we can go to a new motion to clarify all the stuff.
Let me
okay.
start writing.
Yeah, start writing. So if we want to fix that, we would not want a second, and then we can go back and fix it without having to deal with amending things. So is there a second to Ted's motion?
Can you repeat?
Restate the
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah, restate the motion.
Yeah, I asked.
Don't, you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
It was, the motion was to address in the building.
They're going to say it.
So, yeah, it's addressed, so you want to say.
It's
the
to
motion?
address all persons in the building, in the school buildings, must also follow the pre-K through 12 mask mandate.
But it doesn't address the extracurriculars, so we thought we could do that in one motion.
But it does.
In the school.
We could.
It's in the buildings, right? It's not
Other
during
than,
the school.
other
day.
than football, soccer,
Those
But
are
those are
outdoors.
In-
right?
Wrestling?
But again, this is quarter one.
Quarter one.
So we're not going, we're gonna address that later, so maybe the timing of it is,
Volleyball?
volleyball is indoors, yeah.
But it's still in the school buildings. So are we
But
Just
it's not
needed
like a 3 o'clock time ending.
We
It's
never
in the
said
building.
3 o'clock in this one.
So we're gonna clarify that. Yeah. Okay. So there's no clarity on it. We want to probably be more specific? Okay, so that's the motion, more generally stated. If there's no second, then we'll fix it. Is there a second to that motion?
I'm still confused
Still
on
confused.
the actual motion.
And honestly, I'm trying to think, I mean, in the buildings, but you're also talking about like volleyball, obviously spectators,
He's
but then
not.
players.
Right, well, that's the clarity we don't have.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So-
Sorry.
He
Someone else
wants
can-
to, but it wasn't clarified.
Someone else can try this one.
Come on.
Go, Christy.
No, it's a good point, it's a good point, Jen. We want to get it right. No, we want to get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm even having trouble writing it down, so.
Yeah. It's not very specific beyond speaking to activities. So if we want to be more specific, that's what the redo.
I feel like we have to be specific, don't we?
Probably should. But
Just
what
otherwise
questions
it's
later?
not, it's not clear.
Okay. So is there a second?
I think we killed this one.
I think it's
Yeah, I
dead.
know, but I gotta go through the paperwork here. Okay, so with no second, the motion dies. Okay, so let's kind of wordsmith it before we actually say I'd like to make a motion. So we want a motion to include anyone in the building, correct? So
All
technically, we can
visitors.
clarify that. So we want to go beyond
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
in the building
in the,
anytime.
or is it during school hours? When there's a larger congregation of people? And during volleyball event?
This is the process, all right? So we look at then, we probably should say a window of any time in the building.
Yes.
And then that would take care of all the activities in the building.
You're gonna have a hard time. Yeah,
Well, it's not unusual, we've been there.
yeah, it's true.
So it's just unfortunately, we've been there.
We got all the stickers on the windows, right?
So do we have a better motion?
Oh, I
I stopped
thought
writing.
that
You
you.
go ahead.
Okay.
I give up.
All right. You're gonna have to help me.
All persons at any time in the building. Are required to follow the same mask mandate that's enforced for
Teachers, a bunch of students, in particular.
our pre-K through 12 students.
What did we have last year? Was that the same last year?
What's that language?
What?
Yeah, I was wondering what that language was, so yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
should just do masks are mandated in school buildings.
What was it?
Mask mandated in kind of
School
school
buildings,
So you're saying all persons at any time in the building are required the same mask mandate of the district K through 12 students?
Pre-K through 12.
Pre-K
through the first quarter, through quarter one.
through
Through quarter one, unless.
quarter one,
And visited.
unless board modified. You got this, right, Jamie? No.
She's working. We're getting there, we're getting there.
All persons at any time in the building are required the same mask mandate of pre-K through 12 students through quarter one, unless board modified.
Period.
There was one other thing I was gonna bring up.
Unless previously modified.
Starting
unless
the first
modified
day of
by
school?
board action.
Unless modified by board action.
There you go. That's one of the-
By board action.
Starting on first day of school.
Yeah. We should probably list that day
Yeah, right.
because it's differ for, so September.
Be the first day.
So of pre-K through 12 students, starting the first day